Welcome to today's episode on staying in a place of hope. As women, our journey on becoming successful is very diverse. Although the word successful for everyone is very relative, for most, being a successful woman is often tied to your ability to birth a child. Today, I'm joined by two incredible women, and I call them my women of hope and faith. Oyinkansola Ogundele, the founder of My Gynae Issues, a not-for-profit organization focused on raising awareness for reproductive health issues and the effects on women. Also with me is Woona Ademolu, human resources professional. She's also a lifestyle YouTuber where she obviously shares her journey. Both guests are using all platforms necessary to create awareness on gynae health issues to women. Hi, Oyinkan. Hi, Woona, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Jo. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Oyin. Thanks, Woona. It's really exciting time. Let's quickly move on to today's topic where we are really talking about female reproductive, do I say system? And sort of really try to hone in into how we can create awareness for people. I guess when I say for people, not just for women, for men as well. You both have quite a bit in common, both in a place of hope and faith, because of course we know that your testimonies are coming. Let's start with your journey, Oyinkan. You found out quite early that you had fibroids. Can you just take us through that experience, what the experience of finding out, I guess, what it meant to you at the time?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share my journey, to share my experience. So I found out that I had fibroids very early on in 2001. I'd gone for a routine scan and, the doctor simply mentioned, oh, you've got a fibroid here. But it's really small and you don't have to do anything about it. I think we'll just adopt the wait and watch option. And I said, okay, that's fine. And then that was in 2001. By 2005, I realized that I had this constant feeling of bloatedness. I was, my periods were very heavy. It had just suddenly become so heavy that, I couldn't manage it anymore. And then I went back to the doctor to ask, what's going on? I don't understand this, feeling of tiredness, of fatigue. Yeah, off we went for an ultrasound scan. And lo and behold, the reports came back. There were more fibroids, they'd grown bigger and it was causing a lot of problems. And it suggested that I needed a myomectomy, which is a surgery to remove fibroids. So I sort of chickened out when I heard that I was going to have a surgery, because obviously doctors tell you there are risks, there are pros and cons. If there's an issue, a woman can lose her womb and all of that. And I was like, oh no, I don't really want to do that. So I chickened out. But in 2007, I had to go back because, the fibroids were really, they had even gone bigger. And so eventually I succumbed. I had to have a myomectomy. And the process was to give me an injection once a month for 3 months to sort of shrink the fibroids, subjected to surgery. And that was the process that I adopted.
Thanks for shedding that light on you. You did say that 2001 was when you did find out. At what age were you at the time?
In my early 20s. Your early
20s. And the reason I asked the question is because I did say at a very early stage of you being a young adult. So thanks for sharing that. And what was that journey for you at the time? I know you did share your anxiety. You weren't comfortable with the idea of going through a surgery. Would you say that that's as a result of, I guess, the fear that we have when it comes to surgery, of, possibilities of you perhaps not making it?
Oh, very good question. Thank you for asking that question. Actually, the reason I was afraid was because my first knowledge of fibroids was with somebody back then in Nigeria who was very well-known journalist. And she had gone to this hospital and, reports came. This was sometime in 1992 or so. And she had died, from complications of a fibroid surgery. So I remember that because the person was like my mentor. She used to live opposite our house and I really loved her. So from then, I just didn't have a very good feeling about this fibroid thing. So every time I heard about it, I just always thought, the person would die. So when the doctor told me that I had fibroids and I needed surgery, that was the first thing that came to my mind. Panic and fear, like, no, I don't want to lose my life.
Thanks for that, Oyin. One, I can see you're nodding away you're just sort of agreeing to what's been said. And I know your story is slightly different, albeit similar. At what age were you when you found out that you had endometriosis, and I guess you also have fibroid as well? And what has the journey been for you? Did you have a similar experience to Oyinkan, or is it slightly different?
I would say slightly different. So I was a late bloomer. I didn't start my menstrual cycle until I was 16. So whilst everyone was talking about menstruation and everything, I was fine throughout high school. And fast forward, so 16, I started my period and it was just crazy. I was always ill, nausea, heavy bleeding, pains, unbearable. Like literally, I couldn't do anything. I'm immovable. When we went to the doctors, no one's diagnosed me with anything at the time. They just said, oh, usual painful period thingy, and they gave me medication, and that was it. Unlike Oyinkan, I didn't have the bloatness. I would say I probably at the time, if based on the information I have now, I was probably suffering from the endometriosis at the time. So my understanding is endometriosis is just like a flesh wound growth that you have within your genital area that kind of spreads around. And as you shed blood, when you bleed your menstrual cycle, there's a potentiality that it continues to grow and spread. So it's not as a growth like a fibroid that you'd have a tumor. A fibroid is like a tumor, is a growth. It's growing inside of you and taking space. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Woona, for sharing that. Oyin, you wanted to say something.
Yes, I wanted to say that I know of a lady whose lungs will shut down, will physically totally collapse every month when she has her periods. And that's because, lining tissue that resembles, the lining of her womb is actually also in her lungs. And so every time she bleeds during her periods, her lungs actually also shed secrete some fluid or some blood or whatever. And that basically just blocks the lung cavity and it collapses. So every month for a very long time, she didn't understand what was going on. She just thought that she was always having, she was always very sick during her periods. And it took about 16 major surgeries before they finally found out that,
16 major surgeries.
Yes, before she eventually realized that it was endometriosis. And I know that endometriosis is more difficult to diagnose. The doctors don't diagnose endometriosis as quickly as they diagnose fibroids.
I like how you did say, Woona, you didn't start your period until the age of 16. And I guess the question that I have is, surely most young girls grow up with, the menstrual cycle starts at 12, 11, 12-ish. And I wonder if there is so much more, I guess, that we can do as a community when it comes to educating children. So my question to yourself, Woona, is, do you believe that more could have been done at the time where perhaps you had a delay in your monthly cycle?
I would say yes, because I have an older sister. So she had started a menstrual cycle, I think about age 12, 13, like you said. And whilst I was partly kind of envious that she started, and as everyone else in my class, I was just happy that I didn't have to deal with all those messiness at the time. I didn't see it as it being an issue. And I think, it doesn't really even matter if you started late or not. That shouldn't really be like an alarm or warning sign that you potentially might have fertility issue, I would say. But I stand corrected by all means, please. For me, I think it would be great if there's more conversations had around, menstrual cycles and identifying people who've got pains and any patterns that is just out of the norm, and see if there's any support that can be offered to them. I think that would be something that would be really useful as well, so that it could help with early diagnosis.
Thank you very much, Woona. I guess my next question is, as women who are of African heritage and also married to men who are of African heritage, how have you been able to cope being a married woman and still on this journey to motherhood?
I mean, to be honest, it hasn't been easy, but even saying that, I don't want it to sound like I'm ungrateful, because within the best capacity that people can, I've had support from family, I've had support from friends, from my local church, and what colleagues and what have you. But it is a very lonely and isolating journey. And in terms of support for men, that is like a really serious bridge of a gap that needs to be closed in, because I don't think men really have enough support. So we're saying women don't have support. There's literally almost nothing, I would say, from my personal experience for the men. And, you know, some men, they would crave more than the support from church and all of that. Like, I've recently been looking at ways to see what I can do to bridge that gap and support the men, maybe get those whom have actually gone through that season of, you know, infertility and come out of it, and they have their kids now. They don't even feel comfortable talking about that experience. So, you know, it's kind of difficult. So it'd be nice if men can actually come up, open up, and see if they can create support group from themselves. It would be great, really.
Thanks, Woona. I'm just going to move quickly to Oyinkan, and you kind of touched up on the word infertility. What has this journey been for you through this whole fertility journey?
So I would say that it hasn't been an easy journey. A lot of reproductive health issues. As Africans, it's always shrouded in secrecy. People don't talk about it. It's always so hush hush. We don't want to talk about it because it has a bearing on fertility. You have to have some kind words, something that can sort of, you know, boost the morale, support us, lift the spirits, as opposed to just saying, oh, you know, it's a normal thing. Everybody goes through it. No, it shouldn't be like that. You should be able to offer some nice words, some kind, supportive words, and you should be able to, you know, hold their hands as they walk through the journey. Because I tell you honestly, it's not an easy road to walk.
Thank you very much, Oyinkan. And I agree with you. You never fully understand a journey a woman is going through unless you're working in her shoes. Down the journey of fertility with the support of your husband, what has the journey been like for you guys, not being able to sort of look back and say, well, you know, I always desire to have 3 children and I have them now, or 2 children or 1 child?
It's difficult. I mean, to be honest with you guys, I'm not going to tell you it's all been cream and roses and everything, because it's something that is like a make or break you. So it either brings couples together or it breaks them. Whilst I would say that I've been fortunate enough to have my husband who has been supportive as best as he can, as best as he understands the situation, it is still challenging. I know the God I serve. I don't know when it's going to happen, but I know he's able to do it because he's the God of possibility. So that's where I've kind of put my mindset in. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I guess, you know, we have to carry on. You have to forge ahead and forge on. Just being that woman of hope, woman of faith that you've always been, because I think ultimately, or I believe ultimately, you do need that to carry on. And I hear you around, Woona, when you did talk about, again, I think you said numerous times, family being supportive. Now, there are times where I've heard people say they just don't know what to say. And is not knowing what to say sometimes the best thing as a family member or as friends?
I would say it's important that you know the individual you're dealing with, as you would in anything you do in your career, in your, you know, platonic relationship. For you to have a good relationship with people is because you have a good understanding of them. You don't do things to them that they don't like. So I'm a very open person. I am an extrovert. So I love people to talk. I love people to ask me. So you shying away and saying you don't ask me, I don't really appreciate that. But I mean, you meet someone and you know, I want to believe that the people I'm making examples of know that you don't have kids. You don't meet them and start asking them, how many kids do you have? Or, oh, you're looking nice. So also, you don't have any kids yet. So that will explain that your body. So you don't want to lose your shape. That's why you don't want to have kids. You know, slight comments like that. We don't need that. So it's about being sensitive in every time, in every situation. And, you know, just saying, look, I don't know what it is you're going through. You don't have to understand it. And that's the other thing that frustrates me when people say, I understand. What do you understand? You don't understand a thing. It's just like telling someone who's lost a parent that you understand when you have both your parents alive. What do you understand? You've not lost a parent, so please, excuse me, what do you understand? So you don't have to understand it, but just say, look, I don't know what it is you're going through, but please just know I'm here. I don't want to intrude, but look, if you want to talk, I'm here to listen.
And I think that's a fair thing to say. You have to know who you're dealing with. Oyinkan, I'm not sure if you have a slightly different view to Woona.
No, I absolutely agree with Woona, actually. Get from family and friends. I would give you an instance personally. When I had fibroids, somebody brought me, people will advise you and tell you all sorts of things. Oh, this is, what are you doing? First thing they would ask is, oh, so you've not had children. What are you doing about it? Like, you're not doing anything. They assume that you're fine with it and you're just at peace and you're not really bothered. And they're more concerned for you than yourself. No, that shouldn't be. You should know that the person in that situation already knows what she's dealing with, and she's doing something obviously towards it. If you have any suggestions or any ideas, it'll be good to just say, oh, I know that you would have been doing so much, but I have this idea as well, if you want to consider it. Because obviously when you're going through something and you don't understand it yourself, all sorts of people who shouldn't really be advising you will come with all sorts of advice. And so this day, the person brought me, it's actually a member of the family, but, brought me something and said, oh, you drink this thing. The person that drank it in, so-and-so area, this is what happened. The person just had delivered the fibroid like a baby. And lo and behold, I collected this substance. It was something in a bottle. And as I was about to put it to my mouth, it smelled like petrol or kerosene was inside it. I was like, what is this? What's going on? The person just said, drink it, drink up. I was like, no, I'm not drinking this thing. You can't just, so people have to be, emotional intelligence is very important. And you as well, as a woman, I'd like us to touch that you're not just supposed to take anything and everything because people are advising, because during the journey, all sorts of advice will come. You have to weigh the advice that you get and make sure that you take the good ones, and the ones that are not so good, you can let them wash down the drain.
Thanks so much, ladies. This has been really, really helpful. And I just want to switch things quickly, just before we round up. Would you say, in addition to being a woman of faith and hope, there are other options you are looking to explore in the meantime?
I would say for me, the journey to, becoming fibroid free was the most important journey for me initially, because for me, just struggling with, dealing with excessive bleeding, heavy periods, anemia, and all of that was so difficult that if you gave me a child during the periods when I was, like that, I probably would not have been able to look after a child. Maybe I would have given them to my siblings to look after. I would explore options. If I had to use other options, it'll be welcome for me. But I had to get to this point where I can actually consider other options. At the point where I was before, I couldn't consider anything. I was just looking to be free and looking to be fine, looking to get rid of the fibroids.
Thank you very much. Woona, over to you. Would you say you're considering options? And I guess it's also an opportunity for us to quickly just maybe highlight a few options that are out there as well.
Yeah, thank you for that question, actually. And I find this very, very important. There's so much advancement in medicine now that it's a shame that some of us, because of our background, our faith, we've limited the work of God in our lives. Now, I believe in medicine, I believe in God, but I don't think medicine takes or supersedes the space of what God can do in my life. I believe the advancement in medicine was made possible because of God at the end of the day, because for you to be able to have access to do IVF, to do surrogacy, or to even birth your child through C-section, which some people still frown at in this day and age, I think it's a blessing. It is a blessing in its own.
It is of God. I mean, yeah, definitely. God has his hand in it. Yeah.
God. And if it's not, don't use iPhones or any technology that you're using right now. Because I know a couple who said, oh, a girl told me that her husband doesn't want them to get any checkup done because of their faith. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Except God has explicitly told him. And did you hear? Because if God has told him, because you are two, you're but one. So if God has told him, he should be able to reveal it to you as well. Otherwise,
that's right.
Get that man to that hospital now and get yourself sorted, because you probably don't even need all of this stress that you're going through now. If you had done your checks, you'd have known what it is you're dealing with and know how to, tailor your prayers or the treatments that you need to suit you. So some people are actually suffering in silence out of ignorance. Apologies, but it's the truth. So I'm open to surrogacy. I'm open to IVF. I've tried a couple. It's failed. I know there's so many opportunities there. And the only
adoption. There's
adoption as well. Adoption. Now, my thing, I have a reservation about adoption. Okay, guys, if I can share my view, I think adoption is something that every home should make available to every child. Every child deserves a safe space. It's not something. It's not a quick fix or a bandage over infertility issues, because I don't want a situation whereby a couple would take a child into their home, and then when their biological child comes in, then that child is segregated to another, is not getting the same love and attention as they would their biological child. So if you're doing it, know you're doing it to go in full on, and not for a child to be messed up at the end of the day because of their childhood and the way they've been raised.
Thank you so much, Woona. And finally, over to you, Woona. What would you say to someone who is currently going through the journey to motherhood?
Anything I do is centered around my faith. And God's plan is clear, that He wants us to be fruitful and to multiply. And then you can align yourself to that, so that when all the obstacles come, because you would have challenges, at least you've guarded yourself and equipped yourself with that information and the truth that that you would get to your final hurdle at the end of the day. Now, seek help, seek medical help. Go and see your doctor. It's ridiculous for you to be earthly useless and heavenly bound. Please be earthly useful and take advantage of any medical assistance that you can, and do your own research.
Thank you so much, Woona. Oyinkan, and to you, what will be your advice to a parent raising children at the moment?
Okay, thank you for that question. For parents raising children, I'd like to say, well done. You're doing a great, fantastic job. I'd like to say that it's very important that, we start teaching our children, the important things that they need to know, not just for girls. It's good that you do, as you're raising boys and girls, it's very important that you're teaching both of them. You don't segregate. Don't say, okay, my boy should be able to, should be watching TV when the girls should be in the kitchen. It's important that we can raise them to be the same, so that, if a boy is in the house, he can cook. If a girl is in the house, she can cook as well. But again, regarding reproductive health issues, it's very important that we can teach them so that they are well informed. They understand the things that they need to understand, so that no one will come and give them fables or lies.
Well, thank you so much, Woona and Oyinkan. It's been a pleasure having you guys. You guys have definitely shared so much of your experience during this episode. And I really do hope that our viewers are able to learn from your experiences. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us. And really,
for having us.
And that's it for us on today's episode. I'm hoping that you guys have been able to learn something from what Oyinkan and Woona shared. And by all means, please feel free to connect with these ladies, because they can share from their experience, from their personal journey, from their personal experience. And don't forget, always seek medical help. If you have found any of our interviews or videos interesting and engaging, click the subscribe button and also turn on your notification just to make sure you never miss a thing. And don't forget to like, comment, and also share the videos with your friends and families, and get them to get involved in the conversation as well.